Good morning, everybody. John, if you could hear, greetings from somewhere in Tennessee. I am on my way to Aldi's, located in Center Valley, Pennsylvania. I've been there once, a little bit southeast of Allentown, Pennsylvania, about 678 miles from here. Okay, so as you probably have noticed, that I haven't been able to upload as many videos as I usually do. That's because I'm going to the same old places, same old route, same truck stops, and it's getting kind of old. But Rich Melvin has suggested that I should retell my my life story and the beginnings of family and where I come from, how I got here, and all of that stuff. I remember telling you guys this in details when I was doing a dedicated run to from Green Bay to California, but I don't remember which of those videos that I made, and at that time I didn't really know how to, make playlists and all that stuff, and uh, I have since put up about 14,000 videos since then, and it's buried somewhere in the file. I don't know where they are. And it's probably been about 6 years or more. I don't even know. I don't even remember how long I have been here with ADL, but I have told that story when I was driving for WEL. And I would imagine a lot of people have unsubscribed and subscribed. In fact, some of them have already departed this life and went on to the next. So, if you don't mind, I'm willing to retell the story if you're willing to hear it again. For those of you who have not, maybe you'd find it entertaining. So here it goes. I suppose I should start my story in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, back in the I don't know, let's just say 1950s. Even though I wasn't born until 1968. Um, but really, my story begins in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, way before I was born, because that's where my dad was from. My dad was born from in Sheboygan, somewhere in the 1960, no, 1950, I think it is. Hold on, let me see. My dad died 62 years old in, see, 62 in 2000, 2001, I think it is. So how do I do that? 2001 minus 62. wait, 2001 minus 62, 1938. Okay, so somewhere around there, right? My dad was born 1938. But anyway, he was born on April 27, 1938, in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, to a prominent family of Vollrath, Vollrath. And at that time, my dad always tells me that during their time, they were pretty much the cream of the crop as far as community status was. You see, my dad was born into a family that owned the Vollrath company. If you research the Vollrath company, they are the largest manufacturers of stainless steel and aluminum pots and pans. And they were also one of the major suppliers of surgical instruments during World War II. They made hospital instruments that were made of stainless and aluminum. In fact, they also were the suppliers of canteens and what do you call those things with the soldiers drink out of? I can't think of the name. But anyway, at that time, anything stainless, anything aluminum, they had government contracts, and they made pretty good. My dad was born with his side of the his dad's family is the Vollrath company, and from what I understand, his mom, Elizabeth Hanson, was also a pretty big shot. They were the banker side. They owned one of the largest chains of bankers in Wisconsin at that time. Now I know that this is kind of secondhand story, so the accuracy is not going to be all that reliable. But I am just retelling what I have been told and what I grew up in, as a young child. Anyway, so the combination of the Vollrath company and the Hanson banks, they were pretty powerful family in Sheboygan. My dad only had one sibling. It was a brother, which I am named after. And I suppose at that time, it was a different time. I don't know whether it's true or not, but, well, they, I suppose that were the times where racial tensions was quite high, I suppose, right? The whites kept to themselves, and that's that. So they were the kind of family that throughout parties. I mean, I'm talking the kind of parties that movies are made of. They were taught to dress properly, dress the part of rich people, coats and ties, and all the preppy clothing and high society stuff that I've only seen on movies. Unfortunately, my dad was he was the what do you call that? The monkey of the. He was a grease monkey. He didn't like he didn't like all those high pollutant parties and fancy clothes. He would rather just be collecting junk cars out there, tearing them down. Well, we could just imagine he's like Larry, taking a junk car that's been sitting on the barn for 50 years and try to start it and rebuild it. That was my dad. He was a pretty good mechanic. And he did not fit into the high class society, I suppose, from what I been told by his stories. So my dad was not close to his mom, I suppose. That's what I'm trying to tell you. My dad got along with his dad as best as he could, I suppose. But anyway, I don't know a whole lot more about their family except that him and his brother John were not also close. So my dad couldn't wait to get out of Wisconsin fast enough until he was legally able to do it. I remember when he was growing up somewhere in middle school or high school, he went around town to try to apply for work or jobs, and he didn't want to be part of the family structure, I suppose. So he would go around town applying for jobs, only to be shunned because, like, what are you doing looking for a job? You belong to a wealthy family, kind of a deal, right? So, and he was considered to be the oddball, I suppose, even to the community, I guess. So when my dad was old enough, one of the things that he was very fond of was he became a sailor, a merchant marine, a civilian sailor. And I think one of his job was he became a sailor on the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and he started as a deckhand, and I don't know how many years he did that, but he loved it. He also said that when he was old enough to be on the high seas, on the big oceans, he left home. He also had a he also had a very large collections of cars, like Model Ts and Lincolns and Oh, he had a lot of collections of hunting rifles and firearms and all that stuff. But anyway, he left all that behind, became a sailor on the big seas until he did that for a few years, sailed around the world. Now remember, at that time, it's not like what it used to be, what it is now, that it only takes a couple weeks to to get from here to Asia or whatever. No internet, and he raised to the ranks of the chief mechanic. He used to send me or show me pictures of different places around the world that he would go and visit. Germany and England, Africa, Australia, everywhere a big, large ship could go, they were there. Well, until one day, I don't know where they came from, but they had a shipload of something going to Puerto Bogo, Cagayan de Oro City, Philippines. They had a delivery and pickup to the Del Monte Cannery, pineapple cannery in the Philippines, in Mindanao. And I, from what I remember, my dad would, the, when they landed their ship to the dock there, he just fell in love to the Philippines and he jumped off ship. Jump off ship meaning sailors will quit whatever port they're in, and he did. And so he jumped off ship and tried to live locally in the Philippines, in Puerto. And as I mentioned earlier, that was also the different times of in the world where people were not, people were not kind to each other, I suppose. And my dad was absolutely ignorant to the cultures other than his own. To make the story short, I suppose, when he landed in the Philippines, he tried to live there, bummed around. And at that time, the Philippines was still 30 years behind of most countries, modern countries. So it was pretty bare. No, not much of the roads were still gravel and dirt and dust. Electricity was scarce. Basically, no running water, no indoor plumbings, and you get the picture, right? And he bummed around, and from what I understand, people were not kind to him. He was mistreated. He was scammed. He had a horrible experience, I suppose. Not entirely, but I guess there were people that took advantage of him. Now I had to pause right there to start another story. This story starts in Medina, Misamis Oriental, Mindanao, Philippines, because that's where my mom was from. My mom was also born into I wouldn't say a wealthy family. They had a lot of land and farms at that time. So they were not the worst of the worst part, right? But they were the typical laid back Filipinos. But they were wealthy enough that my mom was able to go to Cebu City, and she was sent there to go to college and became a teacher. So my mom was well educated. Uh, the biggest problem with my mom's family was that her dad, my grandfather, was hooked on opium. Opium at that time was very prevalent to many, many countries, especially Asia. And it was quite a devastating and addicting substance. And I suppose just like those families that their dads or mom were gamblers, they owed a lot of money, so they gambled pretty much their land away. They sold their land. They sold it cheap, and so by the time my mom was when she graduated her college, their land was devastated. They pretty much lost a lot. Not entirely, but yeah, they had a very sad story as far as that is concerned. Anyway, so that starts. My mom was 10 years, 15 years. No, 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 no. 5 years. My mom was 5 years older than my dad. I don't remember how old my dad was when he landed in the Philippines. I think he was in the early 20s, mid 20s maybe. So, based on that background, the story of my mom starts. One day, my mom took a bus from Medina to go to the largest city in Mindanao, which is Cagayan de Oro City, for something I don't remember what. But anyway, my mom took a bus, and I would imagine at that time it was like a 5 hour trip because, as I mentioned, the roads were horrible. The potholes were big enough to put a bus in. So my mom went to Cagayan de Oro City, and in order for you to go to Cagayan de Oro City, you have to pass the town of Puerto Bogo. Remember back then, the buses always stop and on every town and every market to drop off passengers and pick up passengers. I think they still do that today, right? So my mom took this bus ride to Puerto, and what she saw while she was in the bus is this young American white dude that was being laughed at, mistreated, being scammed, made fun of. And my mom was the kind of woman that she was, let's just say she was a very intense activist. If she saw somebody being mistreated, oh, she didn't mind. She didn't mind picking up the stick and driving everybody. That she was a she had a lot of fire in her. Oh boy, she had a lot of fire. But according to their story, she got off the bus, went to the crowd, and started yelling at people. And it reminds me of the story of Jesus Christ when the Lord took a cord and started driving people out in the marketplace or in the temple. And so basically, she rescued my dad, this white dude that had no idea what was going on. And you also had to remember back then, people in the Philippines were very, very conservative. And especially on the women's side, you don't just bring home a boyfriend or go on a date. That was a different time as well. You know what my mom ended up doing? Instead of going on to her destination to Cagayan de Oro City, she took a different bus and went home and brought the white dude with her. She brought home an American white dude. And as I remember, her dad, my grandfather, was not pleased. But I, that's as far as I can remember the story goes. I don't know what happened after that, how they managed to get together. But basically, because my dad at the time was homeless. So basically, my mom kind of took him home, gave him a place to live, and I suppose that's where my story begins. But oh boy, look at the time. If you want more, you'll have to follow more and subscribe. And thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next side. Peace.